Good evening. I'm on my phone's Wi-Fi right now because the house Wi-Fi doesn't seem to be doing very well, so I hope it's good enough for tonight's video. I want to talk a little bit about chronic fatigue because a few years ago, is it like 6 years ago? 7? I became massively fatigued and I thought I had jet lag. I remember calling in sick to work and calling in sick again and then calling in and saying, actually, I'm not coming back. That's the end of that. I'm broken. I'm ill. I can't move. I can't think. The wrong words were falling out of my mouth. I tried typing and the letters were coming out in the wrong order. All my coordination was gone. I remember being stuck in bed like a dreadful hangover just for days and days and days. And it was too complicated to do anything. Whenever I had a desire, an idea, a thought, I need to go downstairs and get some food. The number of steps required to do that was too many. It physically hurt my head. So it just became really painful and I had to say, no, stop thinking and go back to sleep. And then fast forward about a year and I still had some of these really intense symptoms where it would feel like I was being pushed. It would feel like I'd have so much pressure in my head. It actually felt like I was being shoved into a corner. Like my body was pushing down and I couldn't see. It was like everything was a metaphor. Like I didn't have mental clarity. It felt foggy and it looked foggy. It actually looked like I couldn't see things properly. And I felt down and my head was down and my eyes were pulled down. I remember I was having an argument or a difficult conversation with someone and they were saying, look me in the eye. And I was saying, I actually can't right now. It hurts. It felt like it was impossible for me to raise my eyes up. It was so excruciating, so much pressure behind the eyes. So I want to mention a couple of things about the fatigue. It got better incrementally and it was so slow. My God, it took years. And it was such a slow incline that I hardly have any awareness that I was getting better until I could find a memory like 6 months earlier or a year before and think, no, this is better now. And people around me who didn't see me that often would say, you're definitely better, you've definitely got more energy and you're more responsive. And for me, it just felt endless and oppressive. And then every now and then it would get worse again. I'd have like a relapse because when you feel like you can't leave the house, you feel like everything's painful and everything just feels, you get to a point where you say, well, I might as well go out anyway. And then it's kind of hard to work out, like, it feels like I'm really, really exhausted and need to rest. But it always feels like that now in my life. So what am I going to do? And sometimes you choose to stay in and sometimes you choose to go out. And if you get it wrong, it's like you can stay in and have it actually be depleting, not energizing. You can go out and find it energizing and be surprised. And you can also go out and feel like, oh my God, I pushed myself over the edge and it was so hard to tell the difference. So every now and then I'd push myself to go out and it would be too much and I'd make myself really ill. And then it felt like resetting myself like fucking snakes and ladders. What do you call it? In the US, it's chutes and ladders, isn't it? It's snakes and ladders, damn it. It's from India. And it felt like resetting. It felt like go back however many squares. It was utterly, utterly tedious and exhausting and just went on forever. And one day someone asked me to draw it. They said, well, what are the sensations that are coming up? And I described, some of the pressure in my head and some stiffness in my neck. And then when they said, maybe you could draw it, it was a day when I couldn't force myself to go into work. And I had a big meeting that day with all of my bosses. And it was like, shit, I've been caught out. I have to show myself. I can't hide it anymore, because up until that point, I'd been working a full-time job. You know, once I was able to work a full-time job, I was sleeping every evening and sleeping all day Saturday, and not doing much at the weekends, but just definitely sleeping the whole of Saturday to catch up. And suddenly here was this huge meeting, really important, and I just had to give up my game and say, yeah, I've got chronic fatigue and I cannot make it in. And, you know, I've been to the doctor, and I've been to the other doctor, and I've been to the head doctor, and they'd say that I'm stressed, you know, and they say, well, you know, you've been through some heartache, and you've been through some uncertainty, and you seem stressed. Oh, gee, thanks. Would you like some antidepressants? You know, that was pretty much the whole thing. So I'm at home, and someone on a thread, a WhatsApp thread, said, would you draw it? Actually draw what it looks like, draw a picture. And that was the first time when I drew this picture that I realised it's not my whole body feeling these sensations, it's actually just my head. And what I drew was a mask, a red mask with like lines of orange and yellow. It was like bright fire in the eyes and these lines of pain going down my face. And it went across the mouth, it covered the mouth. And it felt like I couldn't speak. And so much heat and pressure. And someone said, you've drawn a migraine. That's what a migraine feels like. But yeah, it was a revelation for me to realise that my whole fatigue was experienced as a sensation only in my head. My body actually wasn't feeling it. It was really my face, this real tension, like a pressing. And I described it as a mask, and it was like when I push into the mask, it hurts. When I push into the mask, I feel the resistance. And when I just lean back, away from the mask, it's okay. There's a bit of relief there. So I started to realise it was about when I'm forcing, when I'm pushing against something. The next day, I think I managed to get into work. And it's just like when you have a bad day in the office, you know, you do what you can to make the day bearable. You do what you can to sort of get through, do tasks that don't hurt too much. And I remember sitting in my chair and feeling like I was made of honey, and just feeling this really deep, heavy meltiness. And I just wanted to just melt into the floor. And I had to look busy, and I had to try and be useful. And I ended up just going into the ladies' toilets and locking myself in a cubicle and sliding down the wall until I was just sat on the floor with my legs out in front of me, staring at my shoes. I'm just crying and staring at my feet. And in that surrendered place, I realised it felt all right. It didn't feel bad. It felt okay. It actually felt really good. Suddenly, there I was just being the honey. I was just sitting on the floor, doing nothing, saying nothing, feeling it, feeling the heaviness and the loose meltiness. And I realised it feels good. I realised all I have to do is let it be. I realised it's only oppressive when I push against it, when I try and resist it. I realised after several years that my fatigue is only experienced as oppressive and painful or panicking or frustrating when I'm trying to force myself to do something at that time. Since then, it's been about really getting into relationship with my body, letting it rest when it asks for rest, and understanding that what happened is I ignored all the signs my body gave me for years and years and years, until it got to that point that it said, no, no more, actually, no. Now you are physically incapable of ignoring me. It gave me such a heavy message that I didn't have any choice anymore to ignore it. It was like the body took over and said, no, I'm in charge. We are not doing any more. This is your cutoff point. Body took control, and it enforced stillness. It forced me to stop. And what I had to stop was doing things in a way that wasn't good for me. Doing things in a way that wasn't really what I wanted or really what was serving me. And I needed it to be really, really intense message. I wasn't going to listen to an easy breezy message. I didn't listen to it when it gave me quieter invitations to change what I was doing, because change was really painful. It meant giving up a lot of my identity of who I was, of this super hyper efficient office worker who has all the answers front of mind. That was my identity. And it really kicked my ego to suddenly not be that person, not have all the answers, to have to take a second to think and to sometimes come up blank. What it asked me to do is to be someone who slows down and feels and gets grounded and stays in her body. Whereas I was obsessed with my mind. I was obsessed with logic and philosophy and psychology. I love being in my mind. So that's all I want to say about the fatigue today, and I hope it resonates with some people. And I guess my invitation would be to just feel into what your body's asking you for and have a really honest look at where you are ignoring what your body's asking you for. And just consider the potential consequences of that. I didn't until I crossed the line, and it cost me several years of my life. Is there anything you want to listen to right now? Is there anything that body is saying? And would it be so bad to just humor it and give it what it's asking for? And if you're resistant, have a think about why that might be. If slowing down feels like a bad thing, have a think about why you think that, where that thought comes from, who told you that, and what the consequence feels like. And if it's true, if it's really true. All right, have a good evening.